Hello folks, welcome to 2008. Tonight we're talking about The Eye with Jessica Alba. Fits in very well with other films of the era like The Grudge and The Ring and that kind of stuff. Kind of that kind of vibe it was going for, but I didn't get to nearly the success level of those two aforementioned films. Anyway, we're going to take a look at it anyway because it's not too bad. Spoiler alert, you know the drill. Talking about the movie. If you don't want it spoiled, don't watch. That is out of the way. Alright, so let's get into it. So the story starts off with a scene of a young child looking in a window with a fire raging, and that's our intro scene. Seemingly out of nowhere. And then we meet our main character, Sydney, who is played by Jessica Alba. She's a blind woman. She's been blind since she was 5. She lost her sight apparently in like a fireworks accident or something, and has adapted quite well over these 20 some odd years to be pretty efficient. So they show her being kind of like a boss. Some skater kid almost skates in the street and she stops him from getting hit by a car. All that kind of stuff. Shows her rocking the violin. She nails it. So she's a musician. That's her job. She's with like a little orchestral unit and they're practicing for some big thing or something. She organizes like a little birthday thing for the music teacher or the conductor or whatever, and it's all delightful and stuff. Anyway, we find out that she is scheduled to get a procedure done to replace her defective blind eyes with donor eyes. So I think it's like a corneal transplant or something they called it. I don't know much about surgery and stuff. But anyway, out with the bad eyes, in with the good. So that's what she's set up to do. Her sister Helen is there with her, essentially like, you ready? Not really, but she's a little bit nervous, obviously. It's a pretty big procedure, whatever. Anyway, we don't see any of the procedure. We just cut to her in the bed with bandages on her eyes. So surgery's done. Looks like no complications. A little girl from there's a cancer ward in the building, and this little girl Alicia comes and has kind of been her buddy, I guess, while she's recovering. So they're chatting and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. And she's like, when are you gonna see, or when you're when the bandages come off, you got to come see me or whatever, and so you can see what I look like and all that, and it's really heartwarming. Anyway, the doctor comes and her sister's there, and she takes the bandages off, or he takes the bandages off very slowly, and her vision is returning. It's blurry as hell, obviously. So she's seeing figures and whatnot. She can't really make out who's who, but within a few days, the sight starts to come back. Anyway, she's in the hospital recouping while her sight is returning. And she starts having some strange experiences. So one night, the woman beside her, she's on like a breathing assist machine, whatever the equivalent of an iron lung is for the modern age. I'm not sure what they're called, but the breathing stops, and she hears the woman say, "I don't want to go." And there's a blurry figure standing at the foot of her bed. And again, her vision is not back; everything's blurred. So the woman sitting up in her bed and the blurry figure at the end of her bed are blurry, and she gets out of bed and goes with the figure, and Sydney's kind of like, what's going on? Is she like okay? Or so she goes in the hallway and she sees the figures walking in the distance, and then they like blip out of reality, and she's like, what the? She figures, okay, it's just my eyes. They said that it'd take a while to get used to like being able to see again, so maybe that's like a thing. But then all these like faces and shit come flying at her from every angle. She's like, what the hell? And then she sees a woman standing there and she's like, freezing. And yeah, so that's where we start seeing some creepy stuff. Anyway, she goes back, she's cleared to leave, and she goes and sees Alicia, says goodbye and all that, and they take a selfie together and all that stuff. And she's out. So her vision is back enough that she can function in society. Her sister obviously is going to drive her home because, she's got to learn everything from scratch. So obviously she can't drive. She has to learn how to read even, like, because she's been blind since she's been like 5. So she knows Braille. Like, that's great. She can read that fluently. But, you know, there's scenes of her trying to learn how to read music that isn't Braille, and then all that kind of stuff. There's a scene where she's usually like pro at the violin, but she messes it up, and the dude is kind of like, okay, so are you gonna be all right? You gonna be prepared for the big show on whenever it is? And she's like, yeah, I will be. And they go for coffee, and they're talking and they're chatting, and he's trying to say, you'll be good, don't worry about it. And he goes and gets their order, and she sees this weird looking woman. She's like really pale and kind of like wide-eyed, and saying like, you think I wouldn't do it? I'll do it or something like that. Anyway, this woman ends up lunging at Sydney, who like flies back on her chair, knocks some poor guy trying to bring his coffee back to the table, and bolts basically. Like, the conductor guy's like, you okay? And she just frigs off. So she's like, that was scary as hell. She also has an appointment to see this specialist for, I guess, training her eyes again, and her brain and eyes to function as one. So again, her brain has to relearn how to take in what the eyes are seeing and process that in a manner that coincides with what's going on outside. So at one point the doctor even says, like, you're going to be seeing some stuff that may seem strange. It's a process. Like, you've been blind for so long that's almost essentially all you've ever really known, minus the first 5 years of your life, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it's basically your senses are on overload. Like, from being blind, all of your other senses are on overload. Plus now you have this added new sense, so you're like extra sensory or something like that. Your senses have to learn how to balance again now that this new sense is added and whatnot. So kind of makes sense, but not really. She keeps having these dreams of like a fire and people being trapped in a fire and stuff. Her apartment walls, when she wakes up, her clock is like 1:06 and stuff, and like the walls are shifting, and it looks like a completely different apartment at one point, and then another point it looks like a brick cellar or something. It's really strange. So she's freaking out. She's also seeing this kid in the hallway who's like obsessing about, did you see my report card? If my dad sees it, he's gonna be so mad. Anyway, turns out that this kid is a ghost, and so she's seeing essentially ghosts. So if you've ever seen Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt, it's basically kind of that. I'm not sure which was first. I think Ghost Whisperer was first, but or another one, True Calling, if you've seen that with Eliza Dushku. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of things in like the late 2000s, early 2010s or whatever, doing the I see dead people. So, and the Sixth Sense. I mean, come on, right? Like, that's a gimme. Anyway, getting sidetracked. So she's trying to explain what's going on to the specialist, Paul, and Paul's like, we have your test back, everything, like, biologically you're healing fine, there's no complications. What you're seeing again is just your brain trying to put everything back together and try to get a sense of what sight is again. She's like, you don't believe me? And he's like, it's not that I don't believe you. Like, he's probably thinking in his head, like, I'm sure you believe you're seeing what you're seeing, but I know, you know, medical and science and all that, and this is what it is. And she's like, no, you don't understand. You're not seeing the things that I'm seeing. Like, I see you, I know you're there. Like, my depth perception is still, you know, calibrating and whatnot, but I can tell that you're physically there. This shit, completely different. She sees other ghosts too. There's one in the elevator. There's can't remember, but there's a couple too. There's another one where she sees a woman walking towards her and like walks right through her, and she stops and she's like, what the hell? And then the woman that walked through her stops and looks like, what the hell? So clearly brand new. And then lo and behold, on the other side of the street, that woman's body is on the ground, dead, was hit by a car or something. So that happens. I guess fresh ghosts, you know, are still somewhat aware of what's going on. The whole time too, that figure that had taken that old lady in the hospital is taking these spirits that she's seeing too. So the woman that was hit by a car, you see one of those figures come and grab her, and it turns and looks at her and growls or hisses or whatever. So I guess these things aren't used to being seen. I mean, I guess it's supposed to represent death or like something like that, or various incarnations of death. So that's essentially what it is, a guide to the afterlife. It's not killing them, it's just there to guide them to where they have to go after they die. So that's fine. Anyway, I digress. She is freaking out to the point of they put her back in the hospital. She like ends up cutting herself because she saw the report card kid jump out the window, and I guess this is before she's fully like, the concept of ghosts in her head is full, and she smashes the window, which, I mean, there's a sign right there that the kid didn't fall through the window, and ends up cutting her arms. And so she's freaking out. That's like the moment, I think, where it clicks that I'm seeing ghosts. Like, this ain't good. And whatever the hell those like tall spindly death things are too. So that's not fun either. So she gets home and she smashes all of her lamps and puts her drapes up and her blinds and everything, and she's kind of like in recluse for a while. And she had tried to call her sister and left a message, and her sister's trying to reach her again, and she can't get a hold of her, so she calls Paul, the doctor, to go check on her because she's not in town for whatever reason. So Paul comes in, and the door guy Miguel lets him in, and he sees Sydney, in her bed with like a piece of material over her eyes and like pitch black everywhere. And he opens the drapes right away and lets the light in and takes the thing off her head, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, you want to be blind again? Like, what is going on?" And she explains one more time, and I think he sort of gets it. There's one point where she's even like, "I need to know whose eyes these were, because these ain't normal eyes." And he's like, "Yeah, that's confidential. I can't tell you that. I could literally lose my license." And of course, she's kind of not very understanding. And she's like, "Okay, heaven forbid you lose your license." It's like, that is a big thing. Sorry there. I get where you're going through, but anyway. He has a change of heart and gives her the info anyway, so. It ends up being this woman who lives in Mexico, or who lived in Mexico, the donor, that is. And so she has a living relative, her mother. So they go for a drive to Mexico together, because, you know, that's what a good therapist does for their patients. One thing I will say, I'll just cut into this to say, I'm glad they didn't force a romance, because I thought for sure, oh god, they're going to force a romance, and they didn't. So good on them for that. Anyway, they are driving through Mexico, and she sees like a burning ghost on the side of the road disappear, and she's like, "Okay, hang on, pull over here." And they pull up to a building that's like all kind of dilapidated, and there's spray paint on the side that says Bruja, which apparently translates to witch. They see some kids playing on the other side of the road, and they talk to them, and the kids are saying basically like there was a fire. One of the kids has burns, and essentially confirms that, yeah, there was a fire, people died, and the person that lived there was a witch, basically, the local folklore. So they go up to the house, and they knock on the door, and I guess there's a social worker that's looking after the mother, who's not in great shape, and he reluctantly lets them in, and they start talking to her, and she sort of tells the story of what happened. So there was she worked in a ceramic factory, and her daughter had this gift confirming basically that Sydney's visions and sights are not bullshit. So apparently Anna Christina, that's the woman's daughter, the donor's name, she could also see death. She didn't cause it, but she could see it, and she could like sense it ahead of time, and she could see spirits being led to the afterlife. So the town, being superstitious, assumed she was a witch and shunned her and whatnot. And at the ceramic factory that her mother worked in, apparently Anna Christina had come there to sort of warn everyone that there's going to be something bad is going to happen. You guys all have to leave. They didn't listen to her at all. They like shoved her in a room and just shut the door. And her mom comes out and like, "What's all the yelling about?" And they're like, "Don't worry about it. Get back to work." Lo and behold, you see a guy working in the kiln room or whatever, and boom, fire everywhere. Lots of people die, the mother gets burnt, and poor Anna Christina, locked in the room, dies. Well, doesn't die, but right, no, she doesn't die, sorry. Anyway, she isn't locked out of the room, she's kicked out of the building, that's what it is. I'm so sorry. Anyway, mom's burnt, a bunch of people die. Everyone assumes that she's a witch who caused the fire because she came in there warning everyone about it, so that's not good. After telling the story, Sydney sees one of those death figures again, and she's like, oh god, someone call an ambulance. What? And all of a sudden, Miss Martinez, the mom of Anna Christina, drops and she starts having a heart attack, so they rush her to the hospital, and Sydney's like, I'm gonna stay here, and Paul's like, okay, sure, whatever, we gotta go. Anyway, so they all take off, and Sydney sort of explores the house, looks in her room, recognizes the wall, I guess, from like her visions of her own apartment transferring, so confirm that's the place. She's sitting in the room, she's like, Anna Christina, like, I'm here, what do you need to tell me? I'm here to help you, etc. Then there's a slam, and she sees a cellar door that she pries open, and she goes down into the basement, and she sees Anna Christina basically hanging herself, like in the process of dying from a noose that she just made. She ends up smashing the pipe that it's on, so the noose falls down, and like holding her and like saving the ghost and saying, like, you know, it's okay, it's not your fault what happened, you tried to, you know, basically a there and a pat on the back. I don't know if that granted her peace or not, but whatever, that happens. And at this point, Paul had come back, and he sees her basically cradling air and talking to air. He's like, all right, maybe there's some, either you're fucked in the head or you're legit. But I think he's on the side of legit at this point, based on the Miss Martinez basically confirming everything. Anyway, they head back to the States, and they stop at the border, and the border is basically shut down. There's a blockade of cop cars, and one of the other people waiting in line says that apparently there's some big high-speed chase on the US side that has shut everything down. So they sit in the car, and they're just kind of chilling, and then Sydney notices a girl in the window of an RV, and lo and behold, that's the girl in the window from her vision, like way at the beginning, that she'd been having reoccurring dreams of. So she automatically realizes, oh shit, I'm not just seeing dead people. Like, Anna Christina, the donor, was able to see things before they happen. Final Destination style, let's say. And she probably, you know, she wants me to save these people. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to find out what happened to her. I'm here to save these people here or whatever. Because all of her visions led up to this one thing. So anyway, she gets out of the car, and she's banging on windows of cars, and she gets on a bus, and she's like, everyone needs to get off the bus. And someone's like, what is this, like terrorism? She's like, yeah, exactly, whatever, that's like totally what it is. The height of terrorism, right, at that point in history. But anyway, that gets everyone out, luckily, and as people are filing off the bus and getting out of their cars and whatnot, the car smashes through the border fence and swerves and hits a gas tanker, spilling a leak. A little fire starts going, burning, etc. You know what's going to happen, clearly, right? So, of course, the little girl is locked in the camper, so Sydney goes and, like, with Paul's help, breaks open the door, gets the little girl out, and is running behind some station wagon or something and ducking to take cover as the gas tanker explodes. And stupid Sydney turns to look. I guess it's like natural instinct, right? Like you hear something, what? Anyway, that's when the back window of the car blows out, glass in her eye. So that's that's the end of her short-lived perfect vision, I suppose. And that's that, but everyone survives. I forgot to mention too, like before the car crashed through, she saw a bunch of those shadowy death things, like all rushing all these vehicles and sitting in the vehicles waiting. So, yeah, it was a dead giveaway that shit was gonna go down. Anyway, that happens. She clearly is visually impaired again. I don't know if she's completely blind or just impaired, but she's in her concert playing her violin perfectly. When she had her sight, she messed it up, but when she didn't, I guess she's pro. I don't know. Sensory overload, maybe, that whole deal or whatnot. But anyway, that's pretty much the end of it. She aces the concert. She's happy again, and she cannot really see properly anymore again. So all's well that ends well, sort of. Now, what did we think of this film? I had only seen this once, and I think I saw it like shortly after it came out, because this was at like the height of Jessica Alba's career. I don't know if it was before or after Sin City, but they were all in like the same block of a couple of years. So obviously I was going to go see it, and I don't remember much about it. I have the DVD, which I didn't even know that I owned it. I was looking at what's on, what I could watch this on, and I was like, okay, nothing that I could see it on. And I was like, okay, I'll pick another movie, and I look and I'm like, oh, I own it. Okay, cool. So anyway, that's fun. Widescreen and full screen. Ooh. Yeah, people probably don't even remember what full screen was, but full screen wasn't a full screen, just for the record. So anyway, what did I think? It was kind of fun. Like, it was very, very like late 2000s flow style, feel, energy, like CGI. Actually, the CGI wasn't too bad. Like the death things, they were passable. Yeah, I'd say they were passable. So it was very of its era though, but that era was also pretty fun. I think this is kind of a slept-on movie. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but it's worth checking out. Like I said, I'd put it in the same ranks as, like, you know, The Grudge. Maybe The Ring was a little bit better than this one, but I'd put it about where The Grudge is. Yeah, generally an okay watch. The acting was okay. Like, you know, Jessica Alba, she's not like, you know, Helen Mirren or Meryl Streep or Judi Dench or anything, but she does the job. She gets it done. Everyone else was fine enough. No real complaints. No one stuck out as like an absolutely atrocious actor, so that was good. It took quite a while for the therapist guy, to believe her, which I guess is okay, but he did kind of just give up. You know, he risked his medical license pretty quickly, but you know, you got to get the movie done, right? So good on him. And that was the whole reason I thought there was going to be a romance. I'm like, oh boy, he's doing it for her because he loves her. And no, they didn't do that. So major props for having no romance in this movie whatsoever. That is awesome. In so many movies, they throw in a romance because they feel that that's life and everyone, you know, that wants to see a romance. But you know what? Lots of movies have that and it takes away from the main film. And it's just like, don't put that in there. Like, just have them be buds. And they have that dynamic in this film, and it's really a nice change of pace. So that gives it points as well. No forced romance. The score, I don't remember too much, but it fit the mood. Yeah, I mean, it started off with... I was almost thinking initially, like, oh, are they going to make her like a, what do they call, a Mary Sue or whatever, where she's just good at everything, but... You know, no, like, it's realistic. Someone who's been blind that long would have the ability to sense a car coming. Maybe that the skater kid was listening to his Walkman and didn't, you know, yeah, I said Walkman. Sorry, my age is showing. You know, that kind of stuff. There are blind people who can play instruments, like, perfectly fine, so that's not unrealistic at all. So that thought in my head went out the other side really quickly, so that was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. As a character, she was fine. The way they showed her seeing ghosts and like that kind of stuff was not too bad. It wasn't just... There were a couple like cheap jump scares and whatnot, but I mean, again, it's that era of horror movies. Like the late 2000s had relied heavily on jump scares over, you know, like psychological, creepy scariness that actually leaves you scared after the movie. And so it's like, oh, okay. But, not all of them, but you know what I'm saying. Like, anyway, doesn't matter. So what am I going to rate this one? I'm I don't think it did very well, but I'm going to be a little bit generous to it because I think, as overlooked as it is, I think it should be on the same par level as like The Grudge. I think the story was about on par with that. I don't remember what I rated The Grudge though. And I don't know if this was better than The Grudge or worse, but I'd say they're interchangeable enough that I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to say it's a, what am I rating? It's 6.43. Yeah, that feels okay. Not quite a 7, but it's kind of like a hidden, not gem. Ah, man, I don't know. Hidden fool's gold, let's say, or a hidden crystal or something. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, check it out if you see it streaming on something. It's worth a watch for sure. And I mean, Jessica Alba, like how much more 2000s can you get than that, right? So, yeah, jump scares, ghosts, ghost whisperer type story, or true calling, or whatever you want to see. Sixth Sense-ish a little bit, you know? So, yeah, check it out. That's all I got. We'll leave it here. We're not going to drag on like I usually do. So, have a good one.